Alright, so they just announced the changes to the implant and pilot system. Mostly implants, but there's a small change to the pilots as well. I'm going to go over this. A lot of you might know this, but I'll repeat it once again. I think a lot of this game's future is riding on this update, because the implant system, it wasn't the worst. Like, I've seen games that did it worse, but like, it's not enjoyable, right? It's such a tedious thing to deal with. The general experience for like pilots and implants is not very great. So if somehow they made it worse, then I think that I would very much consider just being done with the game at that point. So in my opinion, this holds a lot of weight. With that said, let's go over the update notes here. So implants will be free to remove from pilots, so you're able to mix and match as much as you'd like. Any upgrades an implant has will remain, even if it's transferred to a new pilot. Okay, so this is basically what people have been suggesting for a long time, pretty much ever since pilots came out, is just allow the implants to stay upgraded rather than having to reset them to level 1 every time you take it off. That's fine. So now you remove it. If I have a maxed implant, I can remove it for free, no issues. It's basically like a permanent implant removal discount. But I don't have to worry about upgrading my implants over and over and over again every time I want to swap it to a different pilot. That's nice. Okay. That was the big kicker. So they made sure to put that first. Free to remove, that's the big thing. Implants can still be upgraded to level 6, but the level they function at will be limited by the pilot's rank. So a level 6 implant and rank 3 pilot will function like a level 3 implant. That's perfectly fine. I mean, if they've always wanted to limit your implant effectiveness based on your pilot's rank, and now they have a more streamlined way of doing it that doesn't get in the way. It doesn't like interfere with you as a player quite so much. That's fine. I have no issue with that. A new auto-install option will allow you to quickly equip suitable implants onto your pilots. More than likely, that's not going to be used that much, because it'll probably try to install some subpar ones, but, you know, maybe it'll save you some time. A lot of this is going to just save you a lot of time in terms of changing up pilots. Certain implants will now be available to purchase via dedicated implants market. That's good. I've been asking for that for a while. A lot of people, it's like, okay, you have the A-coins to buy an implant, right? You're looking for a specific implant. A lot of people would be willing to buy these things, even if it's, you know, I say A-coins, maybe I'm being generous. Quite probably it's going to be something similar to like the Armory, where it's just like, you know, in-game offers. Even if that's the case, I do know quite a lot of people who would be willing to buy these implants if they came up. Is it a way for them to make more money? Yeah, but it's also just convenient for everybody. Basically allows you to get implants a little bit easier. Now, if it does operate similar to the Armory, then it's not really going to help free-to-play players that much, but it will help pocket change spenders quite a lot. Because as of right now, it's the type of situation is like, if you want a certain implant, if you want like some of these really, really rare implants, then you have to be like an absolute whale to get it, right? You might still have to spend, but it's not going to be a thing that only whales get. It can be something that anyone who's, you know, willing to buy the battle pass can also get, which is pretty fair to me. Scrapping implants will give you implant parts. The number of parts you get will be equal to 30% of the implant parts used to upgrade it, plus a flat number determined by the rarity of the implant, but the implant will be destroyed. Okay, sure. But that's the way that we already have it, right? So if you're wondering, like, will I get more scrap if I scrap them now versus later? I think it's going to be the exact same, but it does kind of depend on the exact flat number. I would assume the flat number is the number that we already have, but maybe it's not. I do hope to find out before the implant actually comes out. Pilots will now only provide a damage boost to weapons that match their innate skill. That means that pilots will only be able to equip implants that match their innate skill, or the mech in their build. They can still use general mech implants to provide bonuses. So essentially, instead of, let's say, Diesel having 30% missile damage and then 40% general weapon damage, after the update, it's just going to have 70% missile damage. So it's essentially the same thing, but it's going to make it a lot harder to use pilots for things that they're not intended for. Which is okay, in my opinion, but also has its downsides, and I'm going to talk about that right now. I mean, let's take this for example. This is my second Stormrack build. This is basically entirely built for Hemlock. So I have Stormrack reload on here, but that's not going to work after the update because this is an artillery pilot. I'm not going to get 40% weapon damage. I'm going to get 0% extra damage if I try to put Stormrack on this. And so what it does is it makes it harder for me to double or triple down on a weapon because it forces me to use like specific pilots, which I'm okay with because I believe that, you know, it shouldn't be that easy to double or triple down on an OP weapon. The problem is, for basically everything, there are already 2 to 3 legendary pilots, which means that people can still double and triple down on things. I mean, take Revoker, for example. I have 3 Revoker builds in this hangar right now. All 3 of them have a legendary close quarters pilot. So I'm perfectly fine here. I'm chilling. So the problem is that I can still do this, and it's not even gonna cause me issues. In fact, I could use 2 Stormrack builds here if I wanted to, because there's still the other missile pilot. So what that does is it kind of forces people to buy more pilots if they want to be like top-end competitive, because it's going to make it harder to use the wrong pilot for the same weapon, which, I mean, to be fair, if you wanted to be top-end competitive, you already had to get freaking Revokers, and you know, if you're using mismatched pilots, you weren't doing as much damage anyway, so you'd probably still want to get these pilots, and a lot of people probably still already have these pilots, but it is worth mentioning, and I think it is a general downside. And the rest of this is basically just to say, you'll have the implant discount the way that it is right now until you update your game, so you probably have like a week at most to kind of situate yourself and make sure everything's the way that you want it before they implement the forced update. They'll probably give an exact date later, but I don't see an exact date on here. Make sure that you don't have, like I have, the Stormrack reload on the wrong pilot, because I don't even know what the update's going to do to that. It may or may not just like fully scrap that implant or bug something out, or maybe it'll just take it off, put it in my inventory, and I'll be chilling, but it's probably not worth risking it. So yeah, get your pilots figured out and prepare for this change. It is going to make things a bit more convenient. I don't think the upgrade costs are going to change at all. Basically, the scrapping costs and the free removal costs is going to be essentially the same. It's just going to be like you scrap it and you get the 30% back at the same time. This also means that you can't remove an implant from a pilot, get the parts back, but still keep the implant, right? You either get the parts back or you keep the implant, but you can't do both. But it does mean that you don't have to continue wasting resources on the same implants over and over and over again, so I think ultimately it's going to make pilots cost less. And that's great, because they cost way too much. Anyway, yeah, overall thoughts on the update, it's good. It's definitely better than it was. The one downside and the only complaint that I have is that it does kind of push you to buy more legendary pilots that you may or may not have previously bought. And, you know, I'm sure that was entirely intentional. It's definitely their way of being like, we're going to lose some money from implants, so let's try to get more money from pilots or something like that. But like, so long as it's convenient for players and so long as it's still rather accessible to players, pilots are way more accessible than implants because pilots are available in the shop for A coins at all times. You know, you don't have to go to some freaking special shop tab and see if there's a pilot available that you're actually looking for, or waste 16,000 A coins refreshing the freaking pilot list to try to get the one that you want. You don't have to do that. You know, you just go to inventory. Obviously, it's going to be better once they make all of them available for A coins. I will ask them if they can do that, because that is going to be the main concern going forward. So it's definitely better. It's definitely better, but it's not perfect. I didn't expect it to be perfect, but I wanted to point out, you know, the pros and cons of the entire thing. I think it's an overall win, but let me know what y'all think. Otherwise, that will be it from me. Appreciate y'all. Take care.